Hallo Gamescom, guten Morgen, einen wunderschönen Samstag wünsche ich. Ich bin Daniel, normalerweise moderiere ich für NerdStar TV, für die Leute, die hier die ganze Technik im Stream machen. Und das hier ist Jakob Wisniewski, er ist Lead Designer bei This War of Mine, dem Brettspiel. Und ich werde jetzt gleich zu Englisch switchen, weil das die einzige Sprache ist, die wir beide verstehen. Also, wenn ihr des Englischen mächtig seid, hört gerne zu. Wenn ihr Deutsch könnt, dann lasst es euch übersetzen von denen, die neben euch sitzen. Zu Hause im Stream ist das natürlich schwierig dann, aber ihr findet schon Google-Übersetzer oder sowas, das klappt immer. I'll be switching to English now. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. And you've brought a beautiful board game with you.
Thanks. Glad you like it.
Yeah, I like it very much. And This War of Mine was originally a video game that came out, I think,
indeed.
2014.
14 was created by 11-bit studios.
Yeah.
The original idea was for the game. Actually, head of the studio, Paweł Michalski, came up with the idea one day to actually make a game that would break this infinite chain of showing war from the perspective of a soldier and glorifying war. So at the time, I think he visited Serbia or Bosnia and Herzegovina, and learned more about the conflict. And so that was the idea for the game. So in this game, we are in this let's say imaginary setting, but obviously it's inspired by Bosnia and Herzegovina conflict in the 90s. Because besides what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, that's one of the only wars that were actually filmed and put on video, because people then had VCRs and cameras, and Sarajevo, where the siege took place, was a big, beautiful city with people that had technology and stuff. So they recorded some of it. You can actually watch it.
It's not easy to watch.
It's not easy to watch, but it's also, I think, something that a lot of people need to remember. So with this game, we're not trying, with this game and with the original game, 11-bit Studios, nor did me and Michał Oracz, the second author of the game, try to impose any fake morals, like tell people, oh, this is so good or so bad that you did. We and 11-bit Studios, we all struggle to have the games to be as thought-provoking as possible.
Yeah, and it does provoke some thoughts. The topic is very serious, and the slogan of the game is, if I remember correctly, not everyone is a soldier in a war.
Yes.
In war, not everyone is a soldier. And that's what this game is about. I think the board game came out 2017.
Yes, exactly.
And in the time period from 2014 to 17, where in this time did you start having the earlier thoughts? Where did the early development progress start? And who approached whom? How did this happen?
So it happened very by coincidence, as many things happen, because Michał Oracz and I, we were working closely together on some quests for Techland, for Dying Light. And the cooperation was awesome. There was this alchemy between us. So we thought we should work together on a different project. And Michał had this idea for a board game with a serious topic, but we didn't know what would it be at the moment. And once he just calls me and says, let's do this together. I want you to write the scripts because I have this idea for the mechanic. And I'm like, okay, but we should find, a huge topic, something that's well known that would promote the idea that you have. And then sometime later, I stumbled upon a friend of mine who is a vivid gamer, and he tells me, have you heard about this Polish production called This War of Mine by 11-bit Studios? I mean, this game is freaking awesome. It's a game changer. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. So then I went to Steam and bought it, played it, and immediately called Michał to say, I have something. And he's like, yeah, I have something also. And it turned out we both learned about the game at the same time.
Yeah.
And we just said, okay, we need to do this in the intellectual property of 11-bit studios in this world of mine. So I called a few people because, as Michał laughs, I have this perk from his game, actually, Neuroshima, a role-playing system. I know a guy. So it turned out I knew some people in 11-bit studios. And next week we're just, off to a road trip, and we met the guys. It turned out they were huge fans of Michał's works.
Oh, awesome, yeah.
So it was, easy to talk. And next time we just came with a prototype, and they loved it. So it all started with passion, basically.
And it went very well. It was very successful. I think you won multiple awards, and your Kickstarter campaign got like 15 times the amount it aimed for.
Yeah, our Kickstarter campaign was very successful. This is because we had some help. Basically, 11-bit Studios did a lot to help us to promote the game. Also, we teamed up with Awaken Realms, who were at the time less known for Kickstarter games, and their CEO Marcin Świerkot had some good ideas about how we should do it. So that was a very fruitful cooperation, and it went really successful.
It was indeed, and the thought of translating a video game into the board game is pretty interesting, because many board games get adapted as video games, like Gloomhaven or Surviving Mars, for example. But the other way around is less popular, I think. And many people also think that video games have like unlimited possibilities, because you can like program anything. But in board games, you're kind of limited. In your opinion, what would you say does board games make board games so appealing to players, although it is pretty limited? What are the strengths?
So, starting from what you said at the beginning, it's funny that you use the word translating, because I used to work as a translator.
Oh, you did?
I translated from English to Polish and from Polish to English. So, a good translator doesn't translate, he or she localizes. So, it means that you should take culture and what's happening in the culture into account while translating. And in my opinion, a good board game is also localized. I mean, a good board game adaptation of a video game. So basically, you should take the general idea of a video game, but the mechanics and the stuff that you do should be in the language of the board games. And this is something that we did with Michał. And you ask about what makes it special, or what makes it interesting to have a good board game adaptation. In my opinion, what board games do, and very few video games can't, is that it brings people together.
Yeah, it really does.
So actually, for this world of mine, I think the first thing, besides building upon the story built by 11-bit Studios, the second thing we thought would be awesome to have was to let people share the experience with each other, because especially in a game like this, with a serious topic. The experience that you share is the most important thing. So, let's say in more specific terms, the way we designed this world of mine is, first of all, to not have any manual. So you don't read anything.
I saw that.
Before.
So you described the game as a fully cooperational, story-driven, open and play survival experience, which is a large genre, like a large specification. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, this is the journal that we have.
Maybe I can show it right here in this camera.
It works. Basically as a first-player token.
Okay.
But also, it is the manual that is basically dissected into sections. And the first page, it's the setup of the game. there's an opener at the front page actually
You can show that as well.
that we wanted to put people in the right mood for the game, because obviously we're not saying you should play while being sad, but you shouldn't just be goofy and joke around, and focus on what you're doing, at least for the first part, because of how serious the topic is.
It is really, yeah. And that's what surprised me most about playing the video game as well. When I first started it, there was, like here, there was no tutorial. So open and play, basically.
No.
And the atmosphere was awesome. The music, the characters, and it was made really, really well. And you do that by having this journal.
Yeah.
Is there any other way you try to get the atmosphere to the players?
Yeah, so just to follow
course, yeah.
the journal thing, you follow the instructions and you go through the first cycle. By cycle, I mean that the game is divided into day and night cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty much similar as in the original game. So during the day, you have a certain amount of things you can do. And why is it so? Why during the day you're kind of trapped in your house? It's because during the siege of Sarajevo, there were many snipers. And whomever would just peek outside their house or aboard the window, they would get shot. And many people were just desperate for food and stuff. They would just, or if they were fed up with the war, with surviving the siege, they would just simply walk to the street. And this is why the day is so focused on what's happening in their house, so that they can salvage some stuff, cook something, craft something. And then during the night, this is actually when the, let's say, life begins for them, because they can go outside to scavenge, to find something or meet with somebody.
Yeah.
So this is also what we wanted to have in our game. So you go through the full day and night cycle that is divided into phases and actions.
Mm-hmm.
And each person that holds this journal is the leader.
I suppose the journal switches then after.
Yes,
the day.
after each action, the journal passes from one person to the other, and it is said that only the person who currently holds the journal can make the decision and actually make the action happen. But the whole group discusses, like let's say in a role-playing game.
I see. Yeah.
So let's say we're playing together and we're just about to decide if we should cook something or save the food for later. And you think that we won't survive the day, but I think that we can somehow manage. I hold the journal, and you just, you tell me that your opinion is that we should just eat the food.
And you're the shot caller then. So if you say nope, we don't.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in a group, this builds up some tension between people. And it's not like we want you to quarrel and fight over it. It's basically that we kind of want the game to happen above the table. And some of the best games I had on the Spiel, Gamescom for board
games, yeah.
They were with people who came in totally different groups, families, people who liked very, I like to say dry games without much story in them. And it was just amazing to see how they would quarrel over the decisions. And this is because the decisions that we have in the game, they are meaningful somehow. They're not only meaningful in terms of the story, but they have always direct impact on the mechanics and the characters. So there's no choices like go left or right.
So there's a lot of butterfly effect there. If you attack this person, this will come back to you to haunt you. Or if you help this person, they might be grateful in the future.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're coming to my biggest part of work that I did for this game is the book of scripts.
I can show it to the audience here.
So it took me a year and I had some help from quite a few people because it was just hard to finish it on my own. But we wrote 1,975 or 6 scripts.
This, yeah, the text is really, really small, so I can show you everything, and I won't spoil you because you can't even read it from there. It's awesome. There's a lot of text in
So
here.
it's not like you read that book while playing because that would kill the game. The scripts, the snippets of the story that are in here, they are triggered once in a while,
Yeah.
and all of them have some mechanics implemented into the flavor text.
Okay.
So once you make a choice, it's an outcome of the short story that's in the game. And some of them, some of the scripts there, they're like Easter eggs, let's say, but they're not funny. They're just something that breaks the... for example, it breaks the fourth wall.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we show you, I show you some of the materials that I've read about Kosovo. I point you to certain stuff, and I know some people will just ignore it, but for those who won't, they will basically get the bigger picture of the story. Besides
Awesome.
that, there's obviously like 99% of that is purely connected to the board game, and while this is not random stuff, I mean. In this game, we explore certain locations.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few decks of cards, and almost each of these decks, there's this card called Reality Impact. So once you draw it, this triggers the story snippet. And on each card, for example, like this one, you
Maybe
can
this
show
one?
the bottom of the card.
Yeah.
There's 5 numbers, different numbers on each card. And we have this deck of colors,
Okay.
and there's 5 colors. So the chain goes like this. You draw the reality impact card, then you draw a random color card, and then this points you to the script.
Okay. So,
Just let me finish.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
The colors are very significant because we knew the topic of the game is very serious, and also to show how pointless or dangerous the war is from the perspective of a civilian trapped in the war zone, we had to make some things random. Like you have absolutely no control of what happens to you in a war zone. Somebody can just shoot you.
Yeah, of course.
So to simulate that, we created the black scripts. And also, some of it is very brutal. So for that, we had the red scripts. And just by, if you're playing with teenagers, just by removing these 2 cards, you can make the game, let's say, PG-12.
So normally it would be PG-18, I suppose.
Yes.
Because of the
Even
very serious topic.
Maybe, let's say, even 21 sometimes.
Oh, okay. So that's the random factor we have in here. So you don't know what happens, and the game will surprise you in every run.
The random stuff is only connected to the script and story.
Of course, yeah.
The mechanics, they're quite worker placement, let's say, crisis management style.
Just so the audience knows, we're reading the chat, so if you've got any questions for him, just let us know. We'll try to answer them as good as we can. I just wanted to ask you another question, because you localized the game, like you said, very well into the board game, but there must have been some features where you had to think a lot, how do we do this in a board game? Was there a very difficult feature of the video game to implement, or something that you really wanted to implement but couldn't at first?
With this war of mine, it wasn't actually, well, it wasn't easy peasy, but it wasn't also very difficult because the game itself had some board game elements. Obviously, what we couldn't do and what we had to limit is the amount of stuff that you could carry and store in your home. So we just changed the quantities and balanced them to have like, not like 15 or 20 pieces of ammunition, but to have like 2 or 5,
Okay, yeah.
just because of the tokens that we have. So the game has quite a lot of tokens, and they're all unique. They all represent all the stuff that you have in the digital game, including stuff that you trade, like moonshine, cigarettes, and food. I'm just gonna drop some more
Just
tokens.
drop some more on my hand,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. So you can all see them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we've pretty much covered everything that was in the basic in the first version of this sort of mine.
Yeah.
And this is something that I madly respect in 11-bit studios. It's that they're one of the very few developers that are true to their word and genuine. Did you know that it's been like 4 or 5 years since the game came out, and they're recently doing new expansions that are like free expansions for the game.
That's awesome.
They're still
Yeah.
developing it, and even I lost track of how many expansions they had and how much they have listened to the community, to the very lively community of the game, and built upon their opinions. And right now there's even the sandbox mode.
I saw that,
Some
yeah.
scenarios. It's just amazing, and for me, it's something that provokes very, very big respect for the guys.
Let's say we're childhood friends, we just bought the game, we're hyped, we want to play the game.
Yeah.
We set it up. How would we start playing the game? What would be our first thing to do? Because, like you said, we don't have to read the manual, we
Yeah.
just open and play.
Okay, so it's good to the game. You can play the game solo, by the way. You can, by your
So
own.
there's a solo
Yeah. Uh,
mode.
It doesn't change much. Everything is on the first page of the journal. But let's say you said childhood friends, as in few people.
Yeah.
So we all sit around, open the game, take out the journal, open the first page, read it aloud, and follow the instructions, and that's all. So as you basically flip from one page to another, everything is described. This is not, reading this, stopping for a while to understand something. This is because it's a board game. Some things are abstract. It's not very, how would you say, it's not a fluid experience in this term, but it takes around 40 minutes to go through maybe 50, to go through the first day
Yeah.
with this, for the full cycle. And then you're actually familiar with the game mechanics. So the next day and the next day, you're more and more familiar. And before you will know it, you will just pass on the journal and only check it once in a while if you trigger something you haven't seen before,
Yeah.
and you already play the game. So this is the biggest, I think, perk that we have in this one.
So the first day is like, okay, let's check the rules again, let's check how this works, and then it gets easier and easier, and
Yeah.
that allows the game to really suck you in at some point, I guess.
Yes. I certainly hope it does.
How long would you say would a full playthrough take?
9 hours.
Yeah?
I'm just kidding. We had some people who somehow didn't miss the information that this full playthrough is like a campaign, because in the basic game you have a save sheet where you can save the game,
Yeah.
and after playing 2-3 days, so like 1.5 to 2 hours, you can just pause and return to it afterwards. And some people would just play over the full thing. That was quite intense. Also, there are scenarios in the game that are a lot shorter, because you begin the game with some stuff already happening. So you're being drawn into a story. For example, the last few days of the siege, or a very harsh winter that you
Yeah.
only need to survive like 5 to 6 days. and also you have no idea how long will the campaign take because of this deck of events. So it's divided into chapters, and
Yeah.
each chapter has also its own set of rules, objectives, and each chapter has a few cards, but you don't know which one in the last chapter is the end, is the peace, is the end of war, which is the end of game.
Okay, so you don't actually know how long it'll
So
take.
it might
Yeah.
take, I don't know, 20 days, but it might take 17 days.
So you can't plan. Okay, we now have to survive like 5 more days.
Yes.
The water.
And this is
enough.
this is on purpose.
Yeah,
This is on
that's
purpose.
cool, because like you said, you can't plan what's happening to you in a war.
And in terms of objectives, this is a very simple game because you have only one objective:
And it's this one.
survive.
You need to survive.
So
How difficult is the game? Do people often
it is.
fail?
People often fail. This is a fully cooperative game, so there's not much space for rivalry and uh, joking around in terms of breaking the game. If you don't cooperate, the people that you have, like let's say in your custody, that you take care of, they will probably die.
They will probably die. That's bad, and that shouldn't happen at all.
Let's maybe show some of the miniatures that we have for the game.
Of course, I just looked at them, and they are really cool. And are they the characters from the video game as well?
They are exactly the same characters as we saw in the basic game.
Let's look at this one.
And funny thing, maybe somebody doesn't yet know it, that those are most of those people. They're the developers that created the game and people who worked in 11-bit studios.
That's awesome. Like a small Easter egg if you know about this.
Yes, exactly. And this is actually quite cool because in the basic game you had the photos of those people, and they had this special kind of aesthetics that would immediately draw your attention. That these weren't like happy heroes in like superhero poses. And also the combat in our game and in the digital game, it was extremely deadly. Like you would literally die being shot once or twice.
Yeah, and encounter was very serious, and you couldn't take them easy.
So to simulate that, we created these custom dice.
Okay, let me show them.
There's each die represents a type of weapon. So the gray one is fighting like without any weapon.
Like melee, yeah.
Melee, exactly. The yellow one is armed combat with like
Knives and stuff?
melee weapon, exactly.
Yeah.
And the red one is firearms. And they have different number of, let's say, successful symbols on them. So like the firearms, there's basically just one side of it that doesn't trigger damage. But on the other hand, fighting with the fists, if you're not proficient, it's just like 1 or 2 successes.
Yeah, but ammunition is very scarce, like in the
It
video
is.
game.
It
I
is.
suppose, yeah. So you really need to think about when to use which weapon, I suppose.
It is extremely, it's a resource that is very, let's say, limited, and you should think about it strongly. So besides the exploration that happens, you leave your shelter, which is like basically the thing that keeps you alive, this house.
Your headquarters.
Your headquarters.
As you, so you clear the way, you clear some rubble, and you build your house along the way in the
and it
campaign.
can get looted. So
House can get there, so
Yes.
you can be ambushed in the house.
we call it night raids.
Okay.
Because you can imagine that in a desperate situation like the siege, there are other people who want to survive as well. And this whole game is about being human by trying to survive, but also trying to keep your humanity to it.
I experienced that in the video game. For example, I was playing and I really had no food left. And I chose to scavenge at night. And I was at a home from an old man and his wife. And she was ill. and then I had the choice to get all their food and take all their food, and he begged me not to, and I was really feeling bad, and I didn't do anything. So I let my people like hunger and starve just to save that old man, although it was only a video game.
Yeah, many people just took their stuff and they just some meds, and they later returned to learn that the lady passed away because she didn't have their meds.
Yeah.
And this is something that this original game and the board game does a lot. And also, when I said something about this imposing morality on players, so if you make a choice that seems good, it doesn't mean that we will reward you for it.
That's awesome.
So
There's no black and white, of course.
Yeah.
There's gray areas all around.
You can be the paladin, you can be the goodest guy of them all, and people would still do harm to you or attack you because they want to survive. And this is basically what happened. Some of the scripts there, they are like chains of events, and we've added a lot of blank elements to the game, blank cards, tokens.
Yeah.
And some of the scripts, they actually tell you to grab a pen.
And to write something on the card.
Yeah.
So
On the card or a
cool.
token.
Yeah.
So if you want to be empathic and you stumble upon like a dog, a cat, or somebody who's in need of help, a person, you can actually bring them home and you can feed them.
That's awesome.
You can cure them, but this takes resources from you and your people. And it's always this choice: do I feed Boris or Katya, or do I feed this dog that we brought? You know, and we've actually inserted a lot of hidden mechanics into the book of scripts. So like, you can find things that are not in the game. Just
I love that in board
created.
games. If you can unlock like stuff that you initially don't see when you unpack the game.
Yeah.
So that motivates to play more and to see all the hidden things.
Funny you should say so, because this copy of the game is now very unique. Because somebody by mistake took one of our cards from the board game, and I quickly used the marker to create it. So this is a limited Gamescom 2019 edition of the game. I'm gonna leave it with you guys from India Buffarina.
Signed by the designer of the game.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you want to make board games, that's just a tip for you. This is how you design board games. You just use scraps, and you just use paper. And my let's say pro tip to all designers or all people who want to do something on their own is don't focus on how it looks, just focus on if it works. And
So the mechanics, the gameplay needs to work. How did the prototype look? Now I'm intrigued. how well was it polished?
Oh, well, it was quite well polished because especially for Michał Oracz, it wasn't his first rodeo, so he designed quite a lot of board games before. For me, it was actually my first board game project, and it was really a big one. So
Yeah.
it took us 1.5 years to make it, and I've learned a lot by this. So our first prototypes were just, scraps of paper that we wrote upon. We had some, elements from previous games that we used, but the one that we presented to 11 Studios, it was just colorful pieces of paper cut to the size of cards with some handwritten text on it.
Yeah, but it was good enough to.
Yeah, obviously,
Them, yeah.
it was. I wasn't writing it, so it looked quite nice. It was Michał's work, and the presentation, it must be just clear. And I said colorful because colors are, besides of shapes and graphics, with colors you can actually show a lot.
Yeah.
Board games.
I see. we have only talked now about the game. We talked so long that we can't actually like show the first day because it's just so interesting. How does the trade work in this game? Because you can't like trade with an AI, you can't trade with another player. How does trading work? Because it's a very important part of the game, isn't it?
It is. It is. By trading properly, you can actually. That's one of the best ways to survive. In this game, you can trade with practically anybody that you meet.
Okay.
So if you meet some people while exploring, or if somebody comes to your door during the day because some desperate people are running around the city looking for help, there's always an option to trade with them. There's this whole system in the game. So, for example, let's say this starving neighbor comes to visit you.
Yeah.
And he has listed what items he bears with him, and either what he would like for it, or some kind of an exchange rate. So all the items in the game have some kind of value, and basically when you trade, you pay more than you would get normally.
Of course, yeah, and like the other cards, this one has different outcomes.
Yes, this
depending on which color you draw.
Exactly.
Awesome. I really want to play this game now. Okay, so there are a lot of gameplay mechanics, a lot of features. What would you say is your like favorite feature of the game? What are you most proud of, maybe, or what do you like enjoy the most about the game?
Well, obviously, because it was my work, I enjoyed the book of scripts.
Yeah.
And how it builds upon the story of the game and helps it to evolve. And I'm most proud of the fact that I've had so many people playing the game during tests that were actually moved by what I wrote in there.
Oh,
and some of them were like, there was this one game where a father and a son were playing. Son was like a teenager who was basically trying to minimax the game, like get as many resources as he could.
And never thought about the consequences of it.
Yeah,
okay.
And the father, at one moment when they met some people that were, in the game world, they were asleep and very drunk. It was very cold, and they had a small child with them, and it was implicated that the child wouldn't probably survive the night if it was left with the parents, who would also probably freeze to death. And so the young guy was like, okay, let's go further. We have stuff to explore. But the father, obviously, because he was already a parent and more empathic because of his age, he said, no, we have to take the kid.
Yeah.
And they weren't like arguing, but exchanging arguments. And finally, the father decided, like he said, like, we're taking it. And then they had to take care of it and stuff. But this is something that truly, for me, it was the best success of the game, to see that.
Yeah. So people really think about the decision and really can dive into the game, into the story of the game. Let's quickly talk before we run out of time, because I really want to talk about the companion app of the game, because there is a companion app. What does it do? What allows the players to do? I think you can save the game there.
Yeah, you can also save the game, but first of all, if you stumble upon the companion app on Android or iOS, don't mind the reviews, because many people don't understand that it's not a game like on its own, a standalone one, but a companion app. So we have very bad reviews.
And most people always also like wish for a German translation. Is there one at the moment?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. The app is also localized, so it contains the whole book of scripts in, I think, 3 languages, or 4 maybe at the moment. It has 2 special mini games, one for exploration and one for lockpicking.
Lockpicking. So, can you only pick locks with the companion app, or also with the game?
In the game, we do this with a die. We just roll the die and check if we succeeded, if the lockpick broke, and in the companion app we can actually play the mini game.
So it's affected by your skill of lockpicking.
Exactly, to simulate that, and you spend some time on it also.
Awesome.
And the exploration app actually has a noise detector. And this is because during the exploration, there's a noise marker. So
I was wondering when I downloaded the app why it wanted to have...
the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me listening to you. Yeah, that's a creepy developer. So this is because in this deck of cards, that's the exploration, it represents this abstract of both space and time that you move through. Because there's a limited time until like the dusk, or actually until the dawn, when the sun rises, and you need to return safely to your shelter. So to represent that the limited time, we have limited number of cards that you can explore. So the safer you want to be, the more cards you spend. So if you're really safe, very, very silent in your movement and actions, you can only like do 2, 3, maybe 4 things. But if you are like loud and just attract a lot of attention, you can do a lot more. To simulate that and to kind of make people focus a little bit on the exploration, we had the noise marker, and we've set the limit. We run some tests. So if the group is too loud, they're like, ha ha ha, let's do this, let's do that. Then they will actually trigger the residence deck, which is an encounter.
So, yeah.
Encounters aren't good during exploration, because who walks around the city at night? Soldiers, insurgents, scavengers who are desperate for food like you, and some of them might not be nice people.
They might be armed as well.
Yeah.
And although the game is like from 2017, you recently announced 2 new Kickstarter campaigns.
Yes.
But you can't talk about that right now at the moment.
I can talk a little bit.
Okay.
So I've started my own company called Glass Cannon Unplugged, and we're going to focus on making translations of video games into board games.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's what I've done before, but also because I think that not all video games are suited for that. And I have a few IPs that I'm working with,
Okay.
a few companies, that I think that their video games would make awesome board games. So I think, sneak peek on one of them.
Okay. Okay, listen, guys, listen.
Which is the Book of Demons.
The Book of Demons.
By Think Trunk, yes.
Some might already know the Book of Demons because it's an indie game.
Yeah.
Which it's hard to describe, but it plays a lot with cards.
Diablo with cards, and everything in the digital game is made of paper. So
it's not easy, but it would make a good board game.
Yes, and we have laughed with the guys from Think Trunk that we're going to do the Inception move, because we're going to make a board game, so made of cardboard, of their game, which is digital, in which everything is made of cardboard.
Awesome. So that are your upcoming projects. And now, if people really like the game, and I suppose they do, the final question is, where can they get their hands on the game? Can they do this at Gamescom as well, or only online? And where do they have to look, except for Amazon, for example?
Yeah, obviously Amazon is the place, but the game should be available in Germany. We have a distributor here, and it should be in any bigger board game store, if not online. And there's, unfortunately, it's only in English for now.
The expansion,
of course. From last year for the game. And I can maybe sneak peek another thing, that there is another expansion coming out maybe this year, maybe next one, for This War of Mine, which will be the second one. And I don't know if there's going to be a German translation. I hope so.
We all hope so.
So you know, if you're a fan of the game, you can drop the email to the German distributor and tell them, hey, we like it. Do the
Make a
translation.
damn translation, man.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so we're trying to follow in the footsteps of 11-bit studios and also develop the board game.
How long do you want to support the board game? Are there any plans for like in what time period you want to support the board game?
I think we will support it as long as there's a need for that.
Awesome. That's cool. So thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity to show the game.
Of course, it's a beautiful game. It's an awesome game. And
Oh, one more thing. I would actually really want to thank Kickstarter guys and Micah Liebe for having me here because they have invited us to Gamescom.
oh, okay.
And they wanted to show that board games also have a presence, that slower games also have presence here in Gamescom, in the madness and the rush of seeing all the great stuff. Many people would actually stop by and enjoy the game for an hour, even two.
You certainly deserve the place here you got in the Arena booth. That's for sure. So thanks, guys, for watching this. And if you like the game, like you heard, you can get a copy of it in German if you want. I'll be switching to German now.
Yeah,
So, wenn ihr das kaufen wollt, das Spiel, wenn ihr eure Hände dran kriegen wollt, dann gönnt euch das doch einfach. Das ist dann auf Amazon verfügbar und die Translation hiervon kommt auch bald. Mehr kann ich eigentlich gar nicht erzählen. Ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen und hier geht es gleich weiter mit dem nächsten Programmpunkt. Bis bald.